Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 92 today for the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a, kind of typical, very difficult Grand Prix for us at our home race at Silverstone. The bad luck continues. It very much is our bogey circuit. We had a massive incident on lap 1, if you would have seen, and we tried our best to come back through. In the end of it, got a little bit lucky at the end, of course. Actually, we did do probably the most damage limitation I could have hoped for there, but in the end of it, still not exactly ideal. Gasly able to get some points on us, and also other drivers, obviously, who finished ahead of us. Leclerc, Verstappen with his second win of this season, and a very surprising win, I must say, because Australia, I guess, it's the first race, anything can happen, but now that Verstappen's won another race, at a point in the season where I really thought it was going to start to become myself versus Gasly only, maybe, there's going to be a Leclerc or Sainz in there, but Verstappen came out of nowhere to win that one after a wet qualifying. He just held it through the entire race, so it was very difficult to overtake him, even in the dry on Sunday. So it means he's up splitting Leclerc and Sainz in the championship. So how insane is this, by the way? Like, this is crazy to me that we've got myself and my current teammate Pierre Gasly 1 and 2 here. We've got my previous championship rival Charles Leclerc from seasons 2 and 3 in 3rd place, and then my 2 other former teammates Verstappen and Sainz in tandem there, right behind him. It's insane. And then you got Lance Stroll in the Racing Point, in that pretty crazy Racing Point that's had some mental results, and obviously is still actually the team that's won the most races this year with 3 wins to Stroll's name. So it's been a rather hectic one, and it continued last episode, and I'm sure it'll continue again here at Hungary. It's going to be interesting with traffic, of course. It's Monaco without the barriers, so it's always going to be quite a tetchy one, and tyre wear is always an issue around here, no matter how many upgrades we have. So let's go into Saturday and see how we do over one lap. We're going to start off, thankfully, nice and sunny, but there is, once again, annoyingly, for the 3rd race in a row now, some rain forecast for the weekend that may just kind of, throw a spanner in the works. Thankfully for me, though, the rain seems to be only forecast for later in Q2 and maybe into Q3, but Q1 right now is dry, and the race should be dry. So kind of almost very similar to what we had last episode, actually, at Silverstone. Well, we're swinging through now the final few corners of this first and hopefully only flying lap in Q1, ready to make it through into Q2. Bit of oversteer, but the car feeling very planted, I must say. Obviously, maxed out car. I think the first time we've been here at Hungary with a maxed out car, so not surprised it feels that good. Although, to say that, it felt good. I was actually quite slow, but nothing new there in Q1. I always heat up a little bit more in Q2 and Q3. Gasly up in P4. Giovinazzi looking strong. Actually, to be fair, both Ferraris looking a lot better than they maybe were last episode, with Giovinazzi lagging behind a little bit, and the surprise was obviously the 2 McLarens rocketing forward in that race we had at the British GP. But as I mentioned, rain on the way, and very much like we had last episode, as I said, just a very dramatic switch. Like, it was so bone dry and so sunny in Q1. It's the British weather's basically followed us here to the Hungaroring, and so it's now doom and gloom intermediates, and we're skating through the final corner, and it's actually a very decent lap time actually there. I mean, in terms of compared to early lap times from everyone else, we're ahead of Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Ricciardo, so everyone's not really set a blistering time on their first run, and by the time we get through to the second run, or time to do the second run, we're down to P6, but that's still pretty good. I thought we would have been outside the top 10, kind of, as per usual, having to do it last minute and get into the top 10, but right now we actually are safe. We'll go again, obviously, because the track is going to get a little bit quicker, because I think the rain, visually you can see it's just a little bit less, even so, even though it wasn't that heavy before, it's just a little bit less now. The rain's kind of stopped falling. It's just the water on track, so the more the cars go out, the more dry the circuit's going to get, because F1 cars are probably the best hoovers in the world when it comes to racing circuits and going over them and chucking the water up in the air through the diffuser and whatnot. So at the moment on the second lap, a little bit wide on the curve there, but the FIA don't say anything with it. We've gained about 6/10 there. Purple second sector, green first. So for some reason now we come to Hungary and the car, or I rather, am driving well in the wet here. Maybe that planted feeling I had in Q1 was going to be a very good sign for us here in the wet, as we now come through. Easy does it on the throttle, but then eventually slam it down, and we gain about a second there on that second flying lap, and we're in through to the top 10 shootout, and we're in 3rd place on the timesheet in Q2. So very, very happy days there for us. Not so much, though, for Charles Leclerc and Lance Stroll. Two big names knocked out. You would say Hamilton usually would be a shock as well, but it's not really been shocking for the last 2 seasons, let's be real. But the big shock is Leclerc and Stroll, both knocked out. Both have the potential, we know, to be right up there at the sharp end, fighting for podium. So the fact they're knocked out here is a massive, massive issue for them. Obviously, Hungary, it's very tricky to overtake. I would say, especially now with the lack of tyre wear, there's even less strategy to do because it is going to be a one-stop, I feel. It might be quite a tough one-stop, but I think most people will go for the one-stop. So it's going to be very hard for them to do anything clever, maybe, in tomorrow's race to jump themselves up the order. But we now come through into Q3, and it really is a yo-yo here with the weather because now we're back to dry. It's not as sunny as it was in Q1. It's a bit overcast still. The sun slowly creeps out for that second run, you can see, with 30 seconds to go in this session. It's now blue sky, so very, very odd weather here around the Hungaroring, but not complaining that we've got dry weather for Q3. Gives us a better chance, maybe, although saying that, we did so well in Q2, maybe I wanted the wet weather to come through, because right now we're in P6, actually. We're only gaining about a 10th or 2 in that first sector. Kind of kept that through into sector 2, gained a little bit more. Purple second sector again, so our car is seemingly very, very strong in the downforce heavy part of this circuit, losing maybe some time to our rivals in a straight line on acceleration in sector 1 and in sector 3, trying to rotate the car as best we can through the final corner, trying to get on the power as early as we dare. We're down to P9, so this has to be a better lap time to get us up the order. We do gain an okay amount of time, not a massive amount, but still about 3/10 that was, but that's only enough for P7 on the grid. And our teammate Pierre Gasly, once again, is Mr. Saturday, just does the job in qualifying and is actually massively... I don't know what happened there. Once again, the timing sheets in qualifying for this season make no sense. You know, with these maxed out cars, these AI can just pull time out of nowhere, it would seem, with the kind of the simulation times and fading from black to the final race results, basically, at the very end of the session. It's a little bit annoying sometimes, but it's just the way it goes, really. So Gasly on pole by a lot. Sainz second place. Surprising, Red Bull have yet to get a win this season. Could this be finally the time they do it? Historically, they've been pretty good around the Hungaroring, but Ocon doing the business up in P3, you know, in the McLaren, with Lando Norris down in P6. Verstappen, obviously, into Q3, just as a thing compared to his teammate, but in P4, doing a solid job for us. And I would say Giovinazzi, that's a disappointment. And Albon, I guess, in the Racing Point car, and a surprise that Kvyat, I actually missed that, the fact that Kvyat even got through into the top 10 in the kind of Renault Alpine livery car. So yeah, bits of an odd session for us. I actually, funnily enough, would have preferred it to be an intermediate because we actually had more pace compared to our teammate and everyone else on the Inters, strangely. So I don't know how to think about this race. Let's just go out there and we're going to have to hope for a good start because, like I said, strategy is going to be maybe a little bit linear.
It's race day in Budapest as we get ready for another round of the Formula One World Championship. We don't expect too many retirements at this track. There are plenty of current and former drivers with flawless finish rates here. In particular, Ralf Schumacher. He made it across the line in all 10 of his Hungarian Grand Prix starts. We're northeast of Budapest for the race today at the 2.7-mile Hungaroring circuit. 14 corners here, 8 to the right and 6 to the left, on a track where downforce is king and passing is notoriously difficult. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Why don't we kick off by discussing Max Verstappen? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Pierre Gasly lines up on pole position, and talented Spaniard Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Ocon, Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, and Norris. The owner driver, Giovinazzi, Albon, and Daniel Kvyat. Hamilton, Leclerc, Lance Stroll, and Bottas. Perez, Matsushita, George Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. De Vries, Aitken, Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Well, it's P7 on the grid. Can it be lucky at number P7 for us today? Let's find out. It's going to be a one-stop, as I said. Unfortunately, very linear, especially with the washout Q2 we had with the rain. It means that everyone has a free choice of tyre as well, which is the other thing. So usually, all top 10 of us would be forced to start on the soft. So it would be that two-stop strategy at the bottom because we have to get rid of that red wall tyre. But now, with everyone starting on mediums, it is going to be very tough to do anything clever on that. Much like Silverstone, it's more about the hard and fast racing. So hopefully we don't have an issue on lap 1 this time. We can just get a clean getaway and hopefully just try and bounce back a little bit. Obviously, I know that qualifying pace is a bit, it's not really there fully. Like, I know Gasly is a very quick qualifier. We know his AI in this game, especially in the last season or two. It's been unreal how much, he's just built that momentum and, got that speed, raw speed in him. He's pretty much, I think, 99 or 100 rated. But I know for sure the gap is not that large, so I'm confident we can close it back in. Sector 2, we're strongest at still, even with that slower lap. So I think, in race terms, we can be actually quite quick around here. We just need to make sure we stay within the DRS of people and don't fall away like we obviously did at Silverstone, which was kind of not fully our fault, obviously. So here we go then to round number 10 of this Season 5 of our My Team career mode at the Hungarian Grand Prix. We go to 5 red lights, and we are underway, and it's a very slow start for Ricardo up the road, and it's a slow one for Verstappen as well. We get a good jump, but with ERS deploying for everyone else, everyone speeds up quite a fair bit. We get boxed in a little behind Verstappen. We find some way around the outside on the left. Ricardo, though, squeezes outside, so we have to take off to the circuit on the rumble strip to get the move done. Little bit iffy there, but the FI have said nothing about it. We squeeze out Ricardo now. Obviously, a little bit, tense with him because, we've had that run-in at the Canadian Grand Prix where he overtook us. We had to let him back pass, and then it happened again last episode, and that, of course, made us spin. So I was very, set on squeezing him out and just getting that overtake done. We had to go a little bit off-road off the exit of turn 1, but obviously it's turn 1, lap 1. I think there's a little bit of leniency there because otherwise, if it didn't go there, I probably would have been hit off fully by Ricardo as it got quite tight in the brake zone because I could have nearly been boxed in by Verstappen and kind of lost some places. So thankfully managed to find a way and navigate ourselves around the outside of turn 1, and we're up into P5 now because of it. But into turn 1 on lap 1, my teammates lost the lead. It's Carlos Sainz that leads the way, but behind us it is a calamity for Lando Norris. Misery for him. He has had such a great day last episode at the British Grand Prix where he charged forward for what was second place, I think it was, if I remember correctly. But now here today he ends off this race with a DNF, an early engine failure for the McLaren Gulf Racing team there. And so it's only just Esteban Ocon flying the flag, although to be fair, Ocon up in P3 doing a very good job, but it's still then Carlos Sainz that leads the way then. He got the lead into turn 1 on the inside on lap 1. Gasly trying to pressurise him for P2. Ocon, though, looks a bit closer to Gasly than Gasly is to Sainz. So maybe this is it. Is it finally time for Red Bull to win a race? Is it finally time for the reigning world champion to win a race this season? Is he going to run away with this? Let's find out as we go on through this, I guess. But lap number 3 on board with us. Personal best lap times. We're closing up to Verstappen. We're pressurising him, but we just can't quite get the jump into turn 1 there. And we can't do the same on lap number 5. So we're going to have to be patient. And as I said, maybe use the Sector 2 time. The fact that we're purple in Sector 2 all throughout qualifying. Looks like our car is the best around that part of the circuit. Maybe that's where we have to try and make the move. So instead of Sector 1, just try and stay as close as we can and then use that downforce and then honestly try and force a move in a corner around here, which I know is very difficult, but I think it's honestly the way to go because clearly every single corner you can see him actually looking way more confident, a bit more punchy off the corners than Verstappen is. He's looking a little bit slow and limping around in the Mercedes car, and he's definitely holding us up, and he's backing us up into Albon because now Albon is in our mirrors, proximity arrow there, and it's not just him, it's also Ricciardo and the 2 Ferraris of Giovinazzi and Leclerc, so we almost need to get a move on and get this moving through this right-hander. It's a great exit in 6th gear. We use plenty of ERS on the exit, dive round the outside, easy does it, roll the car through in 3rd gear, and we're up into P4 of this Grand Prix. A crucial move, I feel, because we have way more pace than Verstappen's got at the moment. He may have dominated last race, but around here, it doesn't look like Mercedes car is as strong as we push off away. We set just under a personal best lap time because we got held up quite a fair bit in that last sector, but we can push away and build that gap and chase after Ocon and Gasly indeed, and that's exactly what you're seeing right now. After a few laps, you can see Verstappen holding up Albon Albon now on a train with Ricciardo in the 2 Ferraris, and it's kind of classic Hungary now. Even the AI can't overtake, and I found it quite difficult. I had to take a few laps to actually get it done on Verstappen, and like classic Hungary on the F1 game, the tyres are an issue. Even with a maxed out car, the front tyres are screaming, the left front there, yellow internal carcass temperature, and this is on the mediums, remember. Can you imagine if we actually started on the softs and it wasn't raining in Q2? The tyres would have been screaming out by about lap 3 or 4 probably on that left front with the soft red wall compounder tyre. So I say that though, I do a very Lewis Hamilton thing here. I'm complaining about tyres, we show you the tyre temps, and then I go and set a fast lap of the Grand Prix. So maybe I just need to shut it and just get my head down really and drive through the pain, which is, to be fair, what I'm exactly doing. Sometimes I found in the F1 game, especially in the later seasons, even though you feel that really annoying and really frustrating on this steer when the tyres overheat, sometimes if you can't cool them down, it's just best to drive through it and kind of drive around it. So having to turn in that little bit earlier to make sure the tyre kind of bites in and the front end goes, and you'll still find the lap time in some sort of way. So lap 13 though, 3 laps later, and I'm still stuck behind Ocon and Gasly. This really is like real life now with Hungary rather than the F1 game. Unable to get any kind of slipstream and overtake Ocon, and Gasly is unable to, well, Ocon's unable to do the same thing on Gasly, and Gasly has just been losing time to Sainz. Sainz at the moment is walking away with this Hungarian GP, and so if he was to go on to win it, at this stage I would say he deserves it, because no one's touched him really. Gasly now is pulling away from Ocon a little bit. We're a lot closer to the Frenchman than he is to our teammate, so can we try and get the McLaren onto this brand new lap 14 onto 15? It's going to be nearly time for a pit stop as well. I think the pit window opens around lap 15 or 16, so it's kind of now or never to get this move done. So we're getting so close, practically almost nearly pushing Ocon through that final bend. A little bit of a wiggle on the rear end for the Frenchman. We open up DRS, deploy ERS across the line, rich mix going, and we're going to go for the absolute send. Dive bomb and a half, lock up on the front right to slow the thing down, but we've somehow made it, and that's the confidence you can sometimes have with a maxed out car, especially at a track like this where I feel like the car is very grippy. I knew that from Q1, and I just had to go for it and just slam on the brakes as hard as I could, but as late as I dared, and we got the job done. And so we're up into P3, but hopefully it will be the case still once we've made the pit stop, because we come in, Sainz is in on this lap, but Gasly and Ocon have continued on. So let's see if the overcut might be anything. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll still be ahead of Ocon, and we can actually gain a little bit on our teammate here, Gasly. But we're in for a set of white wall hard tyres. Pretty decent tyre, to be fair. I think wasn't it season 3 where I actually felt very decent on this set of tyres. So once they rubber in and kind of, wear out a little bit and actually bite in a bit, they're actually not a bad set of tyres. We found out obviously in the recent few seasons, but especially at a track like this where the tyre wear is such an issue, you kind of need a hard tyre like this to lean on quite a fair bit. So things at the moment pretty good then, ahead of Ocon, chasing after Gasly, but we just get a team radio there, and things might just be getting a little bit worse now, because my engineer just told me engine wear is pretty high, and now there's a bit of smoke coming out the back of our car. And I've only just noticed, actually, how have I not noticed this entire episode? On the right-hand side of the heads-up display, our engine there is in red. Now, usually that means a part is very worn. Now, I'm used to having that, be yellow and orange before, because in previous seasons, our engine's still been perfectly fine on orange. It just means that, something like the MGK is worn, and so we can have a little bit less ERS. But this seems to be the internal combustion engine is very worn out, and it's smoking so much, and we've got no pace here. I put it into lean mixture to try and save the engine, because we've got so many laps left. We've got 15 laps left of this Grand Prix. I need to try and limp home to the end now, but we clearly got an issue because we're so slow now, and we've got such a huge amount of smoke coming out the back of our car. And so Ocon has waltzed past us. He actually switchback moved us because we went defensive into turn 1, but I've now got to try and drive quite slowly. I've got to upshift as early as I can and go in lean mixture. I'm still going to try and deploy some ERS and obviously go a little bit quicker on the straights with DRS, because I need to try and actually have some sort of pace. There's no point limping home for, P10, I may as well then just retire the car at that point. But you'll basically see here onto this new lap 21, I begin to upshift a little bit early compared to what I was doing at the very start of that lap, revving the engine out, trying to save the revs basically and save the engine from basically being worn anymore in lean mix now, lifting, coasting. But this is surely going to be quite painful. I mean, there are quite a few gaps in the top 10, but I think Verstappen and Ricciardo very much could overtake us and catch us well before this Grand Prix is over. And look at the amount of smoke that's now coming out of our engine. I mean, that's the same amount as Lando Norris had, and he retired out of this Grand Prix on lap number 2. And I'm just baffled at how we didn't realise and how this has happened. I must have done that thing, and you guys have seen me do it before, where mistakenly, I'm going through the main menus so quickly, when I'm not recording, just going through the menus for qualifying and for the race, that I must have just not remembered that I didn't change my components, and it must have just slipped through the net, and we haven't realised till now. And on lap 22, the engine blows, and that is it. That is race over. That is a DNF for us at the Hungarian Grand Prix on lap 22. I thought I could maybe limp home all the way to the end. Wishful thinking. The engine goes pop, my rear axle goes, and the car sent into a spin. And that is a sorry sight, seeing the likes of Verstappen, Ricciardo, and the Ferraris go by. And so it's a retirement for us. Our very first retirement mechanically on this game, I think. And it's come absolutely out of nowhere.
So after a day of mixed fortunes up and down the field, we bring today's race to a close. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions, and perfecting the team's strategies. They got all of these things right today, and the results speak for themselves.
Here comes your top 3 making their way down to the podium for what can only be described as a fantastic day for Formula One.
To make matters worse then, in this race, as you can clearly see, how's he done this? Sainz was dominating this race. He was a good 5 seconds ahead. I mean, it's not obviously insane amount of time. I mean, it's not out of the realms of possibility. We know how quick Gasly's AI can be. But he's pulled that 5-second gap that Sainz had, and he's taken the race win. He's taken his second win of the season, Pierre Gasly has. And that's huge for us, because we've scored 0 points in this race. I thought last episode was bad for, damage limitation in terms of our rivals scoring points on us. We're now down to 5th place in the championship with 32 points off Gasly now and the lead, which in the context of this season is massive. It's huge because the gaps have only been a few points between everyone, and it's been so topsy-turvy. Leclerc now into 2nd, Sainz 3rd, Verstappen 4th. Gasly now has actually quite a nice cushion to everyone, really, and this is what I was fearing at the start of this season. It didn't come to fruition because it became such a crazy season, but I thought that this was what we were maybe going to be tasked with this season, that Gasly would be too quick for us all season long. But thankfully for us, up till this point, everyone else has been so quick, and it's been such a tight and fun season. But now, one DNF has changed everything for us, and we're now on the back foot massively. We've now got to be the most consistent driver ever. We cannot have a bad race now. It's literally impossible for us to get back in this title fight without having a clean set of races now to the end. And by that I mean we have to be, in the top 5 every race now if everyone else around us and ahead of us in the championship is going to be there. Obviously it's a different matter if one of them has a DNF now. That could change things, and obviously that's just the rub of the green we might get or might not get. But if they're all going to be there in the top 5, which obviously, there's a reason why those guys are in the top 5 of the championships, because they've been all very consistent. So we've got to be up there now, and we've got to be on our perfect drive, and we've got to have the most perfect driving now to pull this back, because this is, they make no mess about it, this is going to be difficult. 32 points. That's huge in a season like this. That's massive. Wow. What upsetting and very confusing draw. I mean, I don't know how that slipped through the net. I've never forgotten to change the components and then not realized it. Like, it's almost like, for some reason, the engine wear didn't really kick in fully until later into the race. Like, it maybe, was fine at the start of the race and then got re-triggered by us doing the Grand Prix. We've had that in the past sometimes, when I've had worn engine parts and it's not really kicked in until a later session, thinking back to F1 2019, I think it was in qualifying ones. But that's just crazy. Mental stuff. That is took me by shock, and I'm sure you guys maybe as well. If you guys did enjoy it though, nonetheless, obviously it's thrown a massive span in the works for the season, the series, then hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I will see you guys next time.